Chapter 11, the 14th of July 2009, 8 a.m. Hotel Royal Bangla, Begunkodar, West Bengal. Good morning, greeted Savitoj. He tightened the neck brace while chewing the last bite of breakfast. He looked cheerful in his shirt tucked in, chic look, ready to face the world again. Ignoring the mishapunings at the station, he took a deep breath before stepping out. The neck collar was providing comfort to his throbbing spine. Savitoj went through the national newspapers. There was a full-page article about his past case. Owing to his bravery, he had become a decorated CBI officer.
Yeah, bye, love you, Ma.
Concluded Ryan before hanging up the phone. He was messed up. He was wearing an unironed yellow shirt, pants that did not match the shirt, and unpolished, informal shoes. He knew it was already late to do anything about it.
Good morning, sir.
Ryan greeted, minutes after receiving the greeting. Savitoj passed him a formal smile. The recent articles in the newspapers were a moment of pride for him. The article read, Australia imposes ban on child adoption from India. This had been expected for a long time now. It was a complicated network. The process first included smuggling the girls from Bihar to West Bengal and across the border to Bangladesh, and then exchanging or selling them off to Australia and other countries under fake paperwork. Savitoj had spearheaded many operations in the slums and the red light areas of Bihar to prevent this trafficking. But many a time, the investigations resulted in a brutal confrontation, as the threat of breaking the supply chain loomed over the smugglers. Apparently, the governments from both countries brought into effect a possible method of constraining the smuggling. Savitoj's name appeared in almost all the articles. His wheeler and methods to counter and crack down the offenders were documented in bolds in the operation files. Another article read, with an aim to provide stimulus to the victims and their families, the Bihar government has offered a compensation of 1.5 lakh rupees for the victims of trafficking, along with education entirely funded by the government. Savitoj was largely relieved by this news. Ryan decided to skip the breakfast and picked up a few bananas from the basket kept near the reception, as it wasn't expected of him to keep his senior waiting. The investigators exited the hotel lobby quickly for the long journey. The weather was much clearer than in the past few weeks. Chiranjit was waiting for them by the car. He quickly put out a half-smoked cigarette and opened the back door. Savitoj and Ryan took their seats. Opening his sling bag, Savitoj took out a list of papers and a large chart.
What's that?
Ryan asked Savitoj. Chiranjit started the car. Made in 2008, it was the latest model of Indigo. The transport had been recently updated in the Bengal police unit. He had never driven an Indigo before, but he was still smooth with the wheels. The sudden ring of the siren during the ignition of the petrol engine diverted Savitoj's attention for a moment. Chiranjit apologized and switched off the speaker. Turning his attention back to the papers, Savitoj began. What's the case's status so far? At night, when I was booking my tickets to Punjab, it struck me that there is one more possible outcome to the already investigated probabilities.
Don't you sleep at night?
Ryan asked with an exasperated look on his face. Not showing much interest, Savitoj continued. You are a mischievous little turd. I have to leave earlier than planned as I need to be prepared for the case. He paused. On any other day, he would have lectured the young man, but today he was ready to let go of many mistakes. Anyway, yesterday you inquired about the things I wrote in your book. Here it is. Savitoj unfolded the chart. Descending from highest probabilities, let's begin. Savitoj folded the humongous table drawn on paper to downsize the paper. Savitoj had to put many folds as the chart was too big to be adjusted in the back seat of the car. The following theories go like this. 40. Maoist attack. Amit drinks little rum at home and comes out to make the last call of his life. He is followed by Dwirup. He tries to run but gets deliberately guided towards the station. He runs in any direction he could. In an attempt to find cover, he tumbles from the edge of the platform and suffers an injury. His hopes crash as quickly as a freely falling meteoroid. Seeing the Carol wood tree, he sits underneath it. Dwirup appears before him. Amit decides to take his own life instead of falling prey to a detractor.
Sir, isn't it possible that there were more of them? Wouldn't it be stupid to attack alone?
Savitoj started with disgust for Ryan's stupidity. Yes. They were doing the Holy Rain welcoming dance. Savitoj said sarcastically. More people, more evidence. Such a large party is easily noticeable. Besides, Maoist attacks are shabby. If they wanted to show their rebellion, they would have shot him openly. In case they wanted to kill him. Even an intention to kidnap him doesn't seem to be an option, as it wouldn't have made Amit run and kill himself. This attack was more on a personal level.
What if there was a fight and someone stabbed him with the gate top?
No, hardly any possibility of that outcome. The iron bar would have been an inconvenient tool for an attack. Even if we think about it, why would someone attack his thighs instead of going for his face or the rest of his upper body? You should read the medical report. Ryan took out a copy of the medical report.
Here, it clearly states that the partial fingerprints found were only Amit's.
It simply confirmed Savitoj's proposal. Ryan became silent. He peeled off a banana, partially because he was hungry and partially to fill up his mouth to avoid any words coming out of it.
Your deductions are but obvious, and the only outcome I see. So why give it even less than half probability?
Ryan questioned, his mouth filled with banana. Two principal reasons. There were no traces of any human presence near the body or around the station, which is quite acceptable considering the ill-maintained station and the heavy rain. Neither any weapon marks nor any other detail was found. Evidence could have easily flown away from the station into the trees, or the rain might have washed away the petty remains. But the fact that even though Amit had a gun, he didn't take any shot at Dwirup, this surprises me. The only bullet fired went directly in his own head. My brain does not accept to combine these two scenarios. He should have at least attempted a shot. Besides, I don't believe he was a coward who would end his life due to the flurry situation. I can't digest this. The car hit a bump. Savitoj realized that Chiranjeet was also paying a little attention to the story. He was excited by driving the new car that had the smoothest transmissions he had ever handled. But the story of someone in the village couldn't be avoided as well. Ryan wrote that down in his diary. Savitoj flipped the chart into a different fold. Now, the second probability. 25. Suicide. Pretty simple as the name suggests. He is under stress due to family issues, his failed marriage, and a terrorist escaping jail who's running around freely, ready to attack him at any given moment. He is tensed. At the same time, he gets a call from the army. Let us assume for a moment that there are problems at the workplace too. Frustration engulfs him. He tries to run away from the situation and gets far away. As far as he could. He gets wounded and takes it as God's indication that his time is up. He commits suicide.
The likelihood of this happening is pretty less. He was a strong army officer. Suicide is hardly an option for such strong men. Ryan stressed his statement.
True. Also, it's hard to imagine why he would run so far away from his house to end his life in such a strange manner. Neither have we found any suicide note nor any statement which points towards this outcome. so not much consideration goes into this outcome as of now. We need to contact the military to know about his behavior before he departed for the holidays. But if we fail to deduce any other reason, this is the theory we put forward to the people and the ministry. Savitoj added to Ryan's conclusion.
So, 5. Property murder? Ryan jumped to the next point. You think his wife did this for the property? People have not seen her in the village since long, Ryan pointed out. So why would she ransom someone to kill her husband and then show up suddenly to whimper over her husband's death and claim the property?
No, it's not his wife. Savitoj cleared out. Ryan wondered for a moment. Property murder is linked to his brother.
How would his brother get any of the property? It's named after Amit's daughter, I guess.
Ryan paused for a moment. When Savitoj did not reply, Ryan repeated.
Right?
Actually, no. I checked Amit's file at the police station. The successor is unclear. Ryan looked surprised. First of all, Amit has not named his father's house to his stepdaughter or wife. Nor has he made her Yatika his legal successor in other assets. The house currently has no claims. As a matter of fact, he has not bestowed any of his property or possessions to anyone. I can't predict what would happen to the house in the future, but his house remains without an owner. Either Tushar Surwa lied to us, or maybe he genuinely doesn't know about the legal matters at all. Hardly believable.
So, this still doesn't explain how Tushar Surwa will get the entire property. Yatika's daughter still has some claim to the property.
Exactly, Savitoj declared loudly. It's Yatika's daughter, not Amit's. Ryan knew this already. The house in which they lived belonged to Amit's father. Amit could live in it because he was the son of the owner of the house and not because his father had bequeathed it to him. So as per Indian property laws, that property will be deemed as ancestral property. Amit's kids have marginal legal rights to such an ancestral property unless Amit personally passes it on to them, which he didn't because it wasn't his in the first place. To make things worse, Yatika and Laboni live outside India.
Laboni?
Amit's stepdaughter.
How could I miss so many important points?
Ryan was startled and a bit frustrated. The excitement dimmed in his eyes as the realization dawned that he lacked knowledge and was blunt in inspections. She is not Amit's blood. Besides, Yatika has also switched her and Laboni's citizenship to Bangladeshi. Savitoj had done many background checks on the day they had arrived and in the days that followed, but he still considered himself less acknowledged than required. Ryan knew he was just finding excuses every time to avoid going to the station. His senior had asked him to inquire around the place, but he had just chatted with the local officers about the possibilities of returning alive. That negligence had now endangered his status to a complete downfall in front of Savitoj. The only fear that circulated in Ryan's mind at that moment was the feedback his senior would give after the case had been solved. So, she has even lesser rights on any of Amit's property. I guess that's the primary reason for Yatika's absence, even though she was the first to be informed about her husband's death. Savitoj stopped to correct himself about the news being delivered, but he knew deep inside that Yatika must have found out about Amit's death. They are still married though. The report nowhere says ex-wife, Savitoj said. But I still don't think she will take any extreme measure like murdering her husband to claim the property. The house isn't that big or attract a fortune. She happens to share blood with one of the most elite families in Bangladesh. Savitoj stated his findings till the date and immediately went silent.
You think she might still come here? Not for any claim or anything but just to pay her respects to her deceased husband? Are you sure she knows about this?
Ryan was still not sure. I assume she has discovered it, the truth, Savitoj answered. The police tried to contact her again, but her cell phone has been out of network for many days. She hasn't claimed any of Amit's possessions yet. In such a case, the ancestral property belongs to his brother. Tushar Surva is the next son and rightful heir to the property. His mother suffered from a paralytic attack a week before Amit's death. It adds to my suspicion. The way he spoke about Amit's personal life, even after claiming that he was not interested in the same, forced me to give this outcome a thought. Also, Tushar Surva knows much more about Amit's work life than he is supposed to. There would hardly be an eyebrow raised if this claims about Dwirup's story indeed comes out to be true.
I don't think so, sir. Why would a brother do such a thing? Didn't you see how he was weeping?
Boy, if you lend me $1 million, I will readily pour out a gallon full of tears. There are no relations when it comes to money. Savitoj said. Though he had no love for Tushar Surva, Savitoj still didn't portray this outcome with certainty. But this too doesn't make sense. Why would Amit run away if Tushar Surva had hired an assassin or had even tried to kill him personally? Why would he shoot himself? Ryan didn't think in that direction. He didn't want to think of a brother killing another. He continued eating the banana and spoke with his mouth full.
If it's still related to the property, don't you think that Yatika, with her ex, the real father of her daughter, could have planned this to get all the property and secretly sell it afterward? Maybe. The old love bloomed again.
It was difficult for her to know and get in any of this. As I said earlier, the property doesn't belong to her or her daughter. Besides, the person she had her daughter with was never seen around. It's extremely unlikely of them to contact each other and plan out the precise murder. The villagers say he was some criminal who was hardly seen in the village. Some say he was arrested in some other part of Bengal. No one knows the entire history. Amit never spoke of it to anyone. Maybe Tushar Surva knows it, but I am sure he won't give the exact story.
Yatika and the criminal may have met somewhere else than the village.
Ryan said, insisting Savitoj on to synchronize with his idea. Maybe, Savitoj replied. We don't know who this guy was. Have to dig more about him. Ryan finally took the hint and nodded. He knew the first task after getting back would be to find out more about this person. When Ryan still seemed unconvinced about the theories, Savitoj eased his thoughts a bit. Do you know that Yatika belongs to a very wealthy royal family in Bangladesh? Her father has a property that would take us centuries to earn. Savitoj stated casually.
No, sir, I didn't know that, Ryan replied. But your advice to leave no possibilities unconsidered compels me to not completely eliminate this thought from my mind.
Neither should you eliminate any possibility till the case is closed. Ryan gave a slight nod with his eyes fixated on his knees, where the chart's summary was written in a minute but readable font. He then raised his eyes suspiciously.
This adds up to 70%. What about the rest 30%?
Ryan inquired. I think we are still floating in the sea of the unknown. We are still missing something. None of this completely explains his death. Looking at the traces left, I think some strings remain so complexly tangled that we are unable to comprehend the main strand effectively. We need to find more evidence. We need to contact his workplace. Inquire more about his behavior. Savitoj folded the sheet.
Sir, you missed a major fish in the ocean of the unknown.
Ryan said. What? Savitoj asked. He was extremely confident about his deductions but still paid keen attention to Ryan's claim. The confidence in his words was whooping high, but when Ryan spoke, Savitoj made an extremely disgusting face, one made by someone who had seen a disgusting person swallowing his own booger.
You left no space for the ghosts.